Hey, what's up? It's Darko from Alpha Trading, and in today's video we're going to talk about squatting, breathing, and posture. Let's go. Hey, what's up everyone? Now we're in sunny San Diego, and I'm here with Caylon Ellis, who's a manual therapist specializing in functional neurology. So Caylon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And Caylon's been working on me for the last couple of days here in Carlsbad in California, and it's been an eye-opening experience for me because she's like a magician. Right? She's like, okay, just hold this card up and look at these crosses. Okay, yeah, okay. How's it feel now? I'm like, oh, it's better. It's like, so we've been talking a lot about back pain and all these kinds of different pains people have in their bodies. So can you share with us a little bit of background on why people get pain? Because I think people don't understand that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest factors of why people get into pain is because they don't really understand their body and what their body needs and how large of a role the nervous system plays. So in order for you to move properly and have everything you need and not need help and compensation, there's a baseline level of stability that you need, and ultimately your brain needs to feel that it's getting what it needs. It needs to feel safe and stable, and the root of a lot of that is people don't understand that, and they don't understand how to breathe properly so that they just have that solid foundation. So a lot of the...
Oh, fuck. Okay, keep going.
little malfunction there. We got some winds here. Blowing our camera over, but yeah, so a lot of pain is really compensation strategies because our system isn't getting what it needs, and we keep asking it to do more, so it's gonna make it happen, but it's not gonna be in the most efficient way necessarily. So, and that's when people tend to have pain and injuries because of these compensations, since they're just not getting what they need from how they breathe and how they move.
Okay, so that's better now. I've got that little stone on the tripod. So, okay, so when people have back pain, is that because they have back pain, or is it because something else is happening? So can we talk about the anterior pelvic tilt and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Or we can demonstrate it maybe?
Yep, for sure,
So
yeah.
I'll hold the camera, you just demonstrate it.
Okay, so yeah, back pain, sometimes back pain is back pain. You can hurt your back and have localized pain. A lot of the time, the back pain is manifesting because of things up and down the chain. So you just mentioned the anterior pelvic tilt, and what that looks like, that in kind of standing posture, instead of being kind of stacked on top and over our center of gravity, the pelvis is kind of sitting more like this, which puts more of a curve through the low back.
And a lot of people have this, right?
A lot of people have this. It doesn't necessarily look like it because it would be really obvious if the whole rest of the body was going forward, but then there's all these other adjustments like the rib cage tilting back and then the head going forward. So this just looks like I'm upright and I have relatively good posture, but if I let my body follow what my pelvis is doing, this is what's happening. And then if I let my body follow what the rib cage is doing, then this is kind of going back that way. So we have a series of things kind of our spinal curves, instead of being stacked on top of each other so that we're over our center of mass, we have like all of these alternating kind of excessive curvatures to where we're no longer over our center of mass and our joints aren't centrated and we're not able to move freely. And anytime that there's kind of this going on, that automatically, I mean, you can try that and see, it does not feel good in your back. It just puts compression through your low back, through the lumbar spine. So you imagine if this is just how you are, and then you move and you walk and you do things on top of it, it kind of takes away from the ability for your spine to act as a shock absorber, which is how it's designed, but it can't do that as effectively the more excessive the curvature becomes this way, or if it can go the other direction too. It's just less common that I see a flattened curve. Also a possibility. What I tend to see more of is people that have excessive curvature through the low back.
So I'm going to ask this question. Okay, so we've covered the anterior pelvic tilt, and so we should have posterior pelvic tilt, right, which is a flat low back, having everything stacked on top of each other, rib cage in line with the pelvis, right?
Yep.
So that's what we've been working on, and it's just a postural change. But how can someone then do that every single day? how can we condition our bodies to just naturally go into that posterior pelvic tilt?
Well, working on breathing properly is the biggest way, because if we reestablish a more efficient breathing pattern, that's going to keep us in that position. And so something that I do want to say is that, just so it's not misunderstood, we don't want to always be there and never move out of it. We just want that to be our resting point so that we can go to the extremes. But if you live and exist in the extreme, then you can't really get anywhere else. So it's not to say that like you want to move around and not let your pelvis move because you have to keep that perfect balance. You just want that to be where you're resting in space. So yeah, right. So breathing through, like down, all the way down low into the pelvis, through the rib cage, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor are the top and bottom cap of our intra-abdominal pressurization chamber. And if we're breathing properly and utilizing those, then that maintains us in a good position.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the breathing real quick. Can you show us how most people breathe and what's the right way to breathe?
Yeah, so I'll do it kind of sideways first. So a lot of times what I see is people breathe, I say take a deep breath, and I see this. The neck gets all tight, and I'll do that from the front too. So take a deep breath. And you can see the tension that builds through my neck muscles. You can see my shoulders are going up, and then from the side position too, take a deep breath, you can see how I'm going even more kind of into that curvature. So what we would like for the shoulders to actually stay down, and there should be movement through the shoulders and the ribs a little bit, but it's like the sternum, which is the breastplate, that should be moving like a bucket handle, and our entire rib cage should be expanding three-dimensionally, and we should also be breathing down into the pelvis. I know that a lot of people ask me about yoga breathing or Pilates breathing or whatever other kinds of breathing, and those are all fine, but those aren't the way that we should be breathing all the time. That's not our everyday breathing pattern. It's great to be able to take a big belly breath, but if you're only breathing like a big belly breath and your ribs aren't moving, that's just not going to give you what you need for your brain to feel like it has the stability required to not need other compensations.
Okay, so one of the last questions I have is, what causes sciatica? Because that's one of the things I had in August, and I couldn't even walk. So we were talking about people that train and they feel like everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden, boom, they get injured. So how does that play into it? Like, why does that happen?
So of course it's going to be different individually, but very rarely is like, you bend weird, or you do that one squat and it's like, oh, that's the thing that made my back hurt, or that gave me sciatica. It's very rarely that one thing. It's just that there's already so many repetitions of something that was patterned not efficiently that things are wearing down until you get to that last one where you cross the threshold and actually feel the pain. I mean, yeah, if you're training and somebody came up and like whacked you in the back or hit you in the knees or something like that, and you had an actual traumatic injury, that's a whole different story. But most of the time when people present with like sciatica or like a herniated disc or something, they were doing something relatively innocuous that they've done a bunch of times, but they just do it that one time and something goes wrong. And that again goes back to sort of existing in non-neutral joint positions, and everything that you do, every repetition, it just wears down at the joints and the tissues and puts tension on the nerves to where it just takes whatever it is. For some people, they can go years like being in this posture, squatting, doing whatever, and having no pain before something happens, and maybe nothing will ever happen. So there's so many factors individually why some people that are young and healthy and active have more pain than other people that are sedentary, have terrible posture, have no pain. That's getting into kind of more details, but yeah, a lot of it has to do with how efficiently you're moving and the breath. I can't stress enough how the breath is the foundation for all of that. And if you don't understand what that means and you want to, then seeking out somebody that has that understanding to help reprogram just your automatic way that you move and breathe can be really helpful, because then you can build strength on top of that. Like one thing I tell people is like, okay, you're going to build a 2-story house, so you start on the 2nd story, right? No, but that's kind of what people try to do. You try to do all these like crazy Olympic weightlifting things and stuff like that when you can't even move through your ankles properly and you can't do a deep squat properly. And then you load it up, and it's not going to get any better when you put a load on it. So regressing.
So let's talk about that, the squatting stuff real quick. There's like a couple minutes. So show us like how most people squat and how you should squat.
Okay, so if people don't have the flexibility through their ankles, then the squat tends to be, the first movement is like with the, like if your tailbone is the guide, with the tailbone just moving straight down and the knee is just going kind of right over the toes. And so in order to get, like right now, squatting like that, this is as deep as I can go unless I shift all my weight back onto my heels and kind of cheat, and then I can sort of drop down the rest of the way. But I'm not balanced and loaded properly through my feet. I feel absolutely nothing in my butt right now. It's all quads. So if we come back up and start that over, and I know you can't really see my feet, but I'm very balanced with tripod contact on the outside under my big toe and through my heel, and I maintain my weight distribution through all those contact points the entire time through the squat. And if you're not feeling that, then that means something else isn't moving to allow you to keep that loading through the hips. So what it should look like is you have that proper kind of balance loading through the feet, and then you're starting out with your pelvis, rib cage, head, all the spinal curves stacked on top of each other, and your first movement should be more back to where you get hinged through your hips, and then you can continue to come down. And I have the ankle flexibility that allows me to do this. In this position, my butt is on fire. Yeah, I feel my quads too, but I feel quite a bit going on through my glutes, which is where you want to feel that. If you're squatting and you feel nothing in your glutes, it's all quads, then something you might want to look at your ankle mobility or just your ability to actually just hinge and pattern, because you might have the ranges of motion, you just might not be patterning them well. And having somebody that can assess you for that and give you help can be really useful, because it's not necessarily a one size fits all. Oh, you have to mobilize your ankles. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need to learn how to move through your hips so that you can get the motion from your ankles.
So where can people find out more about you? Because this was an awesome interview.
Yeah, so my website is under construction right now, but when it goes up, my business is Caylon Ellis Therapeutics. So my website, when it's up, will be www.cetherapeutics.com. I also have a Facebook business page and an Instagram account. I believe my Instagram handle is, I think it's CE Therapeutics. You can find it that way. But yeah, I post more content on Instagram, and I'm working on getting the website up. But that's
awesome. So people need to find basically a clone of Caylon. That's basically it.
And I know people that do this type of stuff all around the world, so feel free, even if you're nowhere near me. I'm always happy to reach out and try to get you help with wherever you are. Kind of that's how you found me, through these networks. So, yep.
Awesome. All right, Caylon, thank you very much for the tips.
All right, you're welcome.
She is awesome. Magician.